and gals, calls work session to open to order. Start with a roll call. Start with you, Ms. Ward.
Robin Ward, I'm the Director of the Real Estate Department and Executive Director of Heritage Land Bank.
Shelley Rotten, Land Management Officer for Heritage Land Bank.
Forrest Dunbar.
Suzanne LaFrance.
Meg Zolligal.
John Weddleton.
Okay, and we have a couple other folks that will be joining us shortly.
Crystal's in
Okay. All right, so you guys have a presentation for us today?
We do. First, I want to start really with an overview. We don't have an awful lot of issues. We want to give, this is a great opportunity for us to be able to give you an overview of why we even have a Heritage Land Bank. Initially, it was set up in the early 80s to receive municipal entitlements. At that point in time, our municipal entitlements were in a court settlement. And so in order to receive those into a very special inventory, Heritage Land Bank was set up. We have our own portion of we have our own code within Title 25, which is public lands, and it lays out how we operate. It lays out the fact that we do an annual and a 5-year plan. It also set up our fund. Heritage Land Bank, which is a division of the real estate department, is not property tax supported. It is self-supporting in the fund. And the inventory, the land inventory includes uncommitted municipal land that's being held for future development, disposal, permitting, and so on, for the benefit of citizens of the municipality.
So, for the record, we're joined by Ms. Kennedy and Mr. Rivera. Please continue.
So a department can come to the Heritage Land Bank and say, we need this piece of property for, using Ms. Kennedy's example, perhaps a cemetery. Or the school district may say, we need a piece of property. We'd like to see if you have anything in your inventory that might work, fire stations or whatever. So part of, so it lays out that we do what's called an annual work plan and a 5-year management plan. And some of the things that it includes, I just want to run through, and then we'll give you a couple of examples. So on our annual work plan, it is set up, it's an approved guide for allocating and managing HOP plans and its resources. And its resources, there are the revenue, what we do with our fund balance. It does conform to our current or proposed 5-year management plan, and it details out all of our proposed land acquisitions that year, what the inventory looks like, any management issues, any transfers, or disposal activities. We do have a heritage, it also, our code sets up that we do have an advisory commission. So you have one more Assembly Advisory Commission called the Heritage Land Bank Advisory Commission. I actually have 2 of our commissioners in the audience today, Vicki Gherkin and Jim Fredericks. They're both commissioners. And so activities come before the commission first if there's going to be assembly action, so that you have a resolution from an advisory commission before it comes to you for action. And those are normally disposals, our work plan, any other activities that require assembly approval.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. Mr. LaFrance, you have a question?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, we just came from a tour of Elizabeth Place.
Yes.
And I don't know if you were planning on talking about those pieces of property there, but if you would at some point.
I'd love to. It's one of my favorite stories to tell. I would love to.
Great, thanks. Thank you.
Actually, if members of the commission, if you guys have anything to say, please let us know. If you want to sit a little closer, we love having you here. Thank you. In fact, if you want to come, you can sit right here. Come up here.
You can come and
Come
sit
sit next to Robin. Okay.
And then our 5-year management plan gives the public a general idea of what our intent is for the next 4 to 5 years, and that details proposed land acquisitions, again, what our inventory issues are, management issues, or any of our transfer or disposal objectives on that time. So our 1 year is basically what you're living with today for 2020. The rest of it is we anticipate, but it could change. So once in a while you will see an assembly ordinance that says, and an amendment to the plan. Things pop up, and we do have to amend our plan, but we try and follow our plan as closely as possible. So one of the examples of an acquisition, we're actually going to get a municipal entitlement this year, which is very exciting because we don't have very many left that we can actually obtain. But this is one that is the remainder of 100th Avenue Road project. Our municipal entitlement is an approximate 9-acre parcel right in the very corner in this corner right here of 100th in Minnesota. Uplands, very nice piece of property. We're excited to get that. And that will come from DNR. That's who holds title to it today. When the plat is recorded, they will give us a quitclaim deed for that 9 acres. That will go into our inventory, and then we can determine, is it something that can be disposed of? Does a department need it, or whatever? But it will go into our inventory.
Before you move on this, all those little blue households, who holds all those?
Well, right now, Real Estate Services does,
All
but
those
all of those have
houses.
a conservation easement on those.
Oh, I'm
That
sorry.
is
So those
what-
aren't all. I'm sorry. I was misunderstanding the map. So that's just all trees right now.
That is a paper plat that's called Laurel Acres. We have been purchasing, we have been retaining all of our foreclosed properties for Laurel Acres. That is Class A wetlands, and so we use those for mitigation. So the ones that you see in blue, most of those were used for the mitigation, wetlands mitigation on 100th Avenue. And we continue to do so.
Mr. Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what's the entitlement all about? What's the relationship there? Why are they entitlements?
The federal government gave municipalities, counties, and so on, land entitlements. They come down through the state. We are, and I'm going to have you maybe even look it up. I believe that we were entitled to 44,000 acres from the federal government coming through the state government. We haven't received all of those yet. Many of them, a lot of the acreage is in Girdwood. We hold what's called Tenement 2 title. We can use it like we own it, but we don't hold title to it because we haven't applied for the patent. In order to apply for the patent, we have to survey it, and surveying is very, very expensive. So unless we're going to develop it, sell it, or use it in some other way that we need title, we take the title as we can. Many of them, and in fact has always been an issue with the Turnagain Community Council around the airport, those require FAA concurrence, and FAA is not willing to concur that those entitlements can come to the municipality. So you'll hear that from the Turnagain Community Council, and I'm sure Forrest and a few others have heard it over the years.
Okay, so we could probably have a whole other conversation.
This is a
just
whole
on
work
that.
session all
So
on its own.
I'll leave any more questions, but that is very interesting. Thank you.
It actually goes back to, I don't know this specifically, but the whole idea goes back to Thomas Jefferson.
Yes, it
He
does.
would-
Yeah.
He would plat townships and give a 16th to the city or whatever it was.
Yeah. Well, I just didn't realize there was such a
36s are
process.
normally dedicated, so we have Section 16 is we own that, with Section 36 we own. So those were from the very early patents, those came through to municipalities and states and counties.
So one more question on that.
Yeah.
Vice President. How do we actually, what do we say those lands are? Do we just continue to call them entitlements until we've actually deeded them over? And kind of what's the legal terminology there?
That is a court stipulated municipal entitlement. We have a court
So we
settlement
don't
agreement.
own
that
it.
was-
We have no control over
We
it.
have control over it. We do
Until
not have
someday.
patent or title to them.
Okay, so for now, though, we call them entitlements. And, okay.
Which means
All right.
eventually, we will get title to them, we hope. But today, we can control them, we can use them, we manage them on behalf of the state, but we do not have title to them.
Well, you say you control them,
We use them.
We have equity.
but you
We
can't.
have
okay, so
equitable
you
title,
can't-
so we can issue permits on them. We can issue leases on them.
You can't.
Yes.
Okay, so you could build on
But
them.
not, no.
You could build.
We would not
Why
build.
would somebody lease it if they couldn't?
We can lease them for trails, we can lease them for
Okay.
other things, but we could not allow, we wouldn't sell those, and we could not allow any structures to be built.
Okay.
Could you use it for snow storage?
Absolutely, things like that, uses like that, we could permit for snow storage, that's
Very
correct.
interesting. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's,
maybe
as
we
I
could-
said, it's a very interesting legal discussion.
Thank you.
So, and then one of the disposals that we are going forward with, we've actually had this piece of property, a couple of acres, down by Bird. If you know where the big log cabin where the carving is, this is close to it here. And we've had it for sale for some time, but our appraisal was pretty high. We've lowered it a little bit, trying to encourage people to make offers on it. We actually now have some interest in it, so We are putting it back out to bid again, and I think we're going to get a successful bidder. So you will see an AO coming forward, hopefully, with a sale to a particular person on this one. So this is a disposal. It's residential land. One of the things that we have been trying to do is to sell our residential land at a time when the market demands that it could use it. So we have several parcels. You'll see another one come forward. It'll go into pace and come forward to you next month. We have a parcel over on Northwood. It's just south of Sean Debenham's apartment complex over there. Again, R1. We feel like this is a good time to put R1 back out for bid because we have very little single-family type land in the bowl for development. So you'll see that one come forward too. So this basically, so what you see is blue, right?
Yes.
Blue
Blue is
is in the Heritage Land Bank inventory. So in our mapping, in our GIS, you can go in and find any of the HLB properties that we have in our inventory. We have them in 6 different regions. But this is basically, and this is only the bowl. Of course, we have Chugack Eagle River, and then we also have Girdwood, Turnagain Arm area, Indian.
And red is state. What's red?
Red is parks.
Oh, it's parks is in.
We
Oh,
should
our
make
parks.
those green.
Oh, right. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
we should make
Yes.
those green.
So this is recent. This is the first time we've ever had a true visual inventory of MOA lands, and you can now go in and see them by management authority. So it's pretty neat.
So you'll see that Kathy Gleason is not here today. I think this is the very first time she's ever missed a work session on HLB. And only because she's out of town. But Kathy did send in a letter today to Austin and Cameron. And we received that. And we want to hand out some of the responses to Kathy. She wanted to make sure that she was able to give you some comments for this. And she proposed 2 amendments. And Turnagain Community Council has always been interested in, even though this area is just outside the boundaries of Turnagain Community Council, they have followed and monitored this general area for a long time. This is generally where the Clitheroe Center is today. And so they've been very interested in protecting, especially protecting the coastal trail there. So she is proposing an amendment. We've agreed in concept. It's probably something that we can agree with. So we'll be drafting a couple of amendments. So those are probably the 2 amendments that you will see next Tuesday night, and we'll bring those forward to you. Just to bring you up to date on what is happening there, because of the stipulated revenue of $15 million for the Alaska Center for Treatment, the planning effort for this area is back on track again. So we are meeting every other week. In preparation that MLMP will sell and that $15 million will come forth. We believe that what we call the ACT, Alaska Center for Treatment, probably will be located here. And then Clitheroe will be demolished and go away at some point in time because Salvation Army is interested in maybe one of the buildings once it's completed. And as we go forward, all of these properties right now are zone T for transition, which is no longer a zoning district in our current Title 21. So probably the first entitlement here will be to rezone these, and we would rezone them public lands and institutions, which would be in alignment with the 2040 plan, because this is public lands, institution, parks, and open space is what is in the 2040 plan. So that's probably the first entitlement that you will see come forward. And then as the planning effort starts to define where that parcel will be needed for the treatment center, how big it is, how we get access to it, and so on. Then we'll start looking at a platting action. And then the very last action for that, it does require a conditional use permit. And so that'll be one of the last entitlements that will come forward. But we'll try and keep you updated a little bit on what is happening here. But again, if the MLMP sale goes through, which it certainly looks like, and possibly the alcohol tax, which will fill some of the gap needed for the construction and operation of this, we'll keep you updated on what's happening there.
So 2 things, Robin.
Yes.
First, I always have trouble. Kathy works really hard, but I have trouble following what exactly she's saying. What specifically is she requesting with regards to this?
She really wants us to rezone it, to
Okay.
plat it out, and to plat out the coastal trail in a parcel
Okay.
that can be actually the management authority transferred to Parks and Rec with the possible intention of designating it as a park.
And
at some point in time.
and the administration is supportive of that.
Generally, that's what we expect is going to happen here.
But my understanding was, I think a lot of us expect that the Elastic Center for Treatment will go out here. It makes a lot of sense. My understanding is we have to do a site selection study
I think
first,
that
right?
the administration really feels like that probably does need to be done, yes.
Yes.
There may be a better place.
Yes.
We are doing a site selection study.
Well, I think not just that there might be a better place, but also we made certain commitments to the public. I was in the impression, at least when we were sort of pitching this whole thing, that there was going to be a site selection study. We weren't just going to decide it's going to go there.
Through the chair, appreciate you, Director of Economic Community Development. So this particular type of use does not require a site selection study like most other public uses do because of the virtue of needing a CUP. There's very few uses that need both a site selection study and a conditional use permit. However, given all the things that you just stated, this is a community facility, and we thought it best that a site selection study be undertaken.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on this before we move forward? Okay. And so you said there were 2 amendments that Kathy
She
suggested.
has proposed
so
2 amendments.
What's the second one? Again,
So the first one occurs on page 4
Okay.
of the packet. She's requesting that we insert the language identified as parks and natural areas in the 2040 land use plan, and we concur with that amendment.
Okay, and there it is, Amendment 1. And Amendment 2.
It's directly below that. And it is adding some of the same language into the 5-year plan with the addition of within the areas designated community facilities or institutions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, let's talk about Elizabeth Place. I think it was probably under Mayor Sullivan, wasn't it, Chris, that we were able to, Mayor Sullivan was able to remove the federal reverter clauses under 3 HLB properties downtown.
Quick correction, actually. It was through the federal delegation.
Oh, federal delegation, okay.
It just happened to occur during that.
During Mayor Sullivan's.
Thank you, Mr. Trainee.
There you go, thank you. The federal reverter clauses were removed, which made it possible to develop, sell, and use those. That had been a parking lot for many, many years for public use that was leased to ACDA. So once the reverter clauses were removed, we saw the opportunity to develop those properties. So the real estate department, HLB, put out an RFP for development. We wanted a mixed-use development, heavy on residential, and of the bid proposers, Cook Inlet Housing was the successful proposer. This is an old one because it still shows the parking lot there. So Cook Inlet Housing was our successful proposer, and we asked them to propose what would they do, how would they pay for the land, and what else did they need? What municipal incentives could we provide them? When they came back, it was very creative, and a few of you, I think, were actually on the assembly at that time. This is the very first time that we considered a seller take-back. We carried the paper for them. So they requested that we do a promissory note and deed of trust, which we did. I think it's $1.2 million and some change. So we have a negotiable instrument in the form of a promissory note. We took back a deed of trust for 42 years. Their payments are based on their surplus revenue, so they have 42 years to pay for it. But what that did was give them the opportunity to make this project pencil, and it was very, very difficult to make a pencil, to be frank. So they didn't have to pay anything to get into the land, but they will pay for it over time. And then the other thing that we did is we helped them look at, this time frame happened just after we sold the John Thomas building, if you remember, and we paid back to the CDBG fund, revolving fund, $1.4 million that had been spent in that. So out of the sale proceeds, we repaid back all of the CDBG funds that had been borrowed, along with the allocation of what they deserve in the increase of the value of the property. We turned around and helped them apply for CDBG funds to purchase the 4th lot, which is where the little house is, which is of course no longer there anymore. And they were able then to purchase that, and then they platted everything together so that it is one parcel, and got all of, and I think there's 6 different layers of funding, federal funding, tax credits, all of that to make all of this work. And then we also help them out with a donation towards expedited permit fees in order for them to get rolling. So we feel like this is one of our very best public-private partnerships for affordable housing. And if you've been through it, it is really, really, it's a gorgeous project. And so we're very, very proud to have been a participant in that. So we have, it's an asset on our books, the promissory note is, and it will be paid over time, but we really feel like we had a good part in making all that happen.
Wonderful. Questions? Could you scroll a little bit to the left here? Those parcels there, is that near the health?
Yes, it is. These parcels right now, this is your current health building.
Oh, to the north, okay.
Yeah, these are 3 HOB parcels. These are being used today for employee parking for AHD, so all the employees park here today. Eventually, as this is redeveloped, this will be ripe for redevelopment.
So the TED project that includes a swap with the developer of that land,
Correct.
but it doesn't include, we're not putting that on the table for that project.
This is in the development agreement, but only used as a laydown yard as they renovate this.
Okay, so after that's done, we can do something else.
You
with
could
that.
absolutely, those could be used for redevelopment.
Okay.
Any specific questions?
Is that the end of your presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're to open up for questions if you have something particular in your
Mr.
district.
Weddleton.
You must have done a great job here. I looked at it real quickly, but I didn't see a list of things in Battle Creek.
Yeah.
Did they send anything in Nancy's in town? So, I'm curious. There's a few pieces of property that I drive by frequently that would be great if we could have a path, a trail easement put on it. Like there's one that would bring Moss Creek development on Brayton over to the Abbott Town Center. If that intervening property had a trail, is there any role for HLB to buy that, plat it in trail easement, and resell it? I mean, those properties, I think one's up for sale now, one most recently.
Mr. Weldon, through the chair, that is absolutely a possibility. One of the ideas that I had several years ago, and it's in the plan, is $1 million of our fund that's set aside to accumulate maybe some small parcels, plat them together, or something like that. So we would be open to something like that. However, remember that we're not tax supported, so we have to make sure that if we do that there's enough benefit. We can't. It has to have some revenue generating component.
But would you buy it to just resell it? I mean, may take a loss. I mean, put an easement on it, and that may enhance the value of some point.
Possibly. It might be better just to pay for an easement rather than to actually acquire the property and have to resell it. Yeah. There's lots.
Would you pay for the easement, or would that be?
Again, and we would have to make sure that there was a revenue benefit to it of some kind.
That would be tough.
It would be.
For law groups or something.
Yes.
But I mean, if you don't do it, is there a department in the city that can do that? With buying?
I would say that that's a possibility. I mean, PM&E has non-motorized trail coordinator there that might be able to find either some grant funds or some other funds to be able to do that.
Thanks.
Ms. Solitano?
Thank you. So how does HOB interplay with like redevelopment districts? Like when we have
Like an opportunity zone?
There we go, yes. So how do those two things intersect, or do they ever?
They absolutely do.
Okay.
Ms. Saltel through the chair, and I think one of those would be the former Native Hospital site.
Okay.
I think that's an opportunity zone. So I'm going to let Shelley talk a little bit about that. We just finished the master plan on that, and I'll let her bring you up to date on what we're doing and how an opportunity zone may play into the future development of that.
Sure. So I got here in May, just after the master plan was approved, and since then I've worked every day to find ways to make this happen. I'm working on, and I wish I had the master plan concept here, but I'm working with several parties on the cultural elements of the development. I don't think it's a secret that finding a developer for the residential or commercial or mixed-use portions of this is going to be difficult until we develop some of the other elements that were approved, say the urban garden, solar farm, just the neighborhood park area, and try to change the perception a bit there. I'm looking at doing a market study that was suggested by the Council of Development Finance Agencies who visited in June. They're funded by the EPA, and they made recommendations on the stack or the things we needed to do before we got to a financial stack and a developer. So we're looking at doing a market study. Hopefully that'll encompass parts of Mountain View, Fairview, and downtown neighborhoods and community councils. And then once that is complete, we can begin really looking at doing an RFI for a residential developer. We feel like that's the first portion of that master plan that will get developed behind the more public areas, the common areas.
This is slated for a rezone. We are waiting for the new downtown district to come forward. I think you'll probably see that in the next 2 months in front of the Assembly. And then once those are complete and approved, we'll go ahead and rezone it to the new downtown district. Right now it's PLI. So again, we want to get it rezoned. That will help, along with the opportunity zones and some other grant funding, hopefully entice a developer to come in and start developing.
So am I reading this right, that the Brother Francis and Beans is held by the HLB?
Yes.
Why the HLB versus some other?
It's a ground lease only, so we only hold the land underneath it. We don't own the buildings.
Is there any other part of the municipality that could realistically hold that besides
Real estate.
HLB?
We can either, there's two divisions, it's either HLB or it can be real estate. We could transfer those out of the inventory if we thought it would be beneficial.
Okay.
Can I ask a
Ms.
follow-up on
Salvatore?
that? So how does it, the fact that it's in an opportunity zone, change what you may do with it, or does it not? It just happens to be there, so you can take advantage of the things that come with that.
The developer.
We'll get to.
Yes.
But does that drive at all anything within the master planning process, or no significant changes or anything? Okay. Thanks.
And this is it qualifies for new market tax credits, opportunity zone benefits, also the downtown tax abatement, and multifamily tax abatement.
We tried to pile incentives on this to encourage a residential developer to
Great. Now do it in Midtown.
The other exciting news about this is that the EPA awarded us a targeted brownfield assessment on this in July. They completed their preliminary study, which was about a 7-month dig into all of the records from the 50s and beyond. And they've determined that beyond the plume of contamination from the old dry cleaner site at 4th Avenue that's now a parking lot, beyond that plume that kind of wraps around here, there is no need for further testing on the site. They are not concerned that any development will turn up any problems. That plume is about 45 feet down in the groundwater, so any development that we do is not going to disturb that plume.
Mr. Rivera?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Constant isn't here, so we don't have to focus on downtown all the time. So, can you...
and there's no other assembly member that can represent downtown.
Can you show me some parcels in Midtown that fit in that perfect intersection of opportunity zone, RFA, other possible incentives that I hope come into Midtown soon?
I would have to see, now, the former National Archives is not in HLB, but the municipality owns it. It's in the real estate division. I'm not sure if that's actually in an opportunity zone or not. Mr. Rivera, we would have to check to find out. But if it is, again, well, every incentive, again, that we can pile on these as we put out requests for interest to developers is just that many more incentives that would bring someone to the table.
Okay. Is there an overlay that shows where the opportunity zones are?
I'm sure that I could download a layer. I don't
think
have
that
it.
would be helpful because, like, as we saw in the news recently, the new hotel coming into Midtown, right? That's an opportunity zone.
Yes.
So just
Why don't
having
we,
that picture.
can we do that for you? We'll download those over the areas of town for you. We can certainly do that. They're federal, we can do that. Okay.
Thank you.
I have one more question. Did you have anyone else in the queue?
No.
Okay. What's the most exciting thing you have in Midtown right now? Tell me something to be excited about in Midtown.
Well, you're with HOB, but we're going to expand this over to real estate. So,
Anything.
I would say that the two most exciting things that we have in Midtown is the former National Archives site and what's going to happen to that, and the possibility, of course, of a day shelter, which we're actively working on with the nonprofits. So we have very little available developable land in Midtown. It's not an area, most of it is either in Girdwood or it's in Chugiak, Eagle River. We have a few on, like, Camel Tracks. We have some that's like around, but we have very little in the actual bowl. Okay, sorry.
No, that's good to know because I think we're asked a lot. People see lots and things and they're like, why isn't anything happening with, and so that was one of the reasons I wanted to ask that question because it is hard for people to understand what's held, how,
And red is parks, is that correct?
Yes.
So you can see the municipality owns a lot of the land, but it's schools, it's parks, it's already being used, frankly. It's been developed and it's being used by departments.
So most of those empty lots you're talking about are probably private.
Mostly privately owned, yeah.
And I'll say a typical land bank in the lower 48 would start to take over those blighted lots a lot through tax foreclosure. We don't do that. We have, single-digit tax foreclosures this year. But the fund that she talked about earlier is something that we could look at in the future. If there are multiple vacant properties together, we can buy and assemble those to
Form entitlements and prepare them for development and then resell them. So we do have that opportunity.
Ms. LaFrance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since you're looking at parts of town, would you mind looking at the Huffman commercial area?
Yes.
Just because there's been ongoing some conversation about daylighting Furrow Creek and having potential park areas there, and I'm just curious as to what the land ownership looks like.
So are you looking at along Huffman itself?
In the commercial area where the big garages kind of squelch some of the dream for some folks, near cars and the post office.
Okay.
No.
Just the commercial business. Yeah. That area. Yeah.
Well, as you can see, the school district has a piece of property there.
Say
but-
again where that area is.
The Huffman commercial area, commercial park.
You said
Furrow Creek.
Oh, Fruca, okay, that's a little further down, a little further over. This is, it would be to the west, or the east.
There it is. Furrow Creek Park.
That's Furrow Creek
I've
Park.
heard of Furrow Creek Park. It's a big town.
All of that is privately owned.
Okay, well, there was, excuse me, Mr. Chair. if you don't mind. There was a concept of it flowing down through that area of the Huffman Business Park and becoming more, actually having a park there and becoming more pedestrian friendly.
That must have come from the private sector because we really don't own very much other than parks and the one fire station that we did sell that was on Huffman that's been, rezoned.
What's purple?
Purple is school district.
The food area.
Yeah, that's their.
I'm not sure where the creek would actually go.
So it presumably it goes along Furrow Creek Park, right? And then does it go north?
John probably. Do you know John?
Well, I think I don't know where the pipes are, but it must go because then it gets into Ocean View, and it is daylighted. Right across is the railroad tracks, and they did a whole bunch of, it was flooding there, so it was, really was bad development up the hill, dumped too much water. All right, and
Sounds like we need
created a
stormwater
$2 million
utility.
project for arts, and it's unfair. But I think that was it, but I don't even know where it is, I mean, it's like Fish
Yeah.
Creek, it's just buried under.
A lot of Furrow Creek is buried here.
But where it comes back out in the ocean, it was actually a nice little.
Other fishing.
I don't know if it's a groundless or not.
Maybe there could be enough.
Okay,
Thanks.
any other questions? I'd like to hear from the commissioners, if you guys don't mind, just telling us a little bit about, what are the hot topics? What's been interesting at the HLB?
Girdwood.
Girdwood.
Oh, yes.
What about Girdwood?
Well,
And I'm sorry, could you identify yourself for the record?
Jim Frederick, I'm the acting sheriff.
Okay.
As you know, the most of the land that real estate manages for the municipality is in the Girdwood Valley.
Could you guys call that up?
And so there are a lot of opportunities down there, and a lot of opinions on what should or shouldn't be developed, and and I'll use the issue of trails as an example.
That's about 5,000 acres that you see here. Now remember, not all of this we have title to, but we have control over this land.
There are competing opinions and interests in the Girdwood Valley as to the need or scope of development of trails. There are some folks who want trails, want lots of trails for a lot of different uses. And there are folks on the opposite end of the spectrum that are concerned that there's too much development of trails, and it's negatively impacting the kind of wild wilderness character of some of the valley. So we hear a lot of that. There's other development down there that's going along quite nicely. There's industrial park that we're involved with down there that's coming along quite nicely, and still has another few phases to
Could you highlight that? Where is that on the map?
That's been an interesting development, I think, quite successful. But, as you can imagine, since there's so much municipal land down there, there's
This
quite
is
a
our
lot
first phase of the industrial park.
of activity and interest in either developing it or not developing it.
Okay. Am I reading this right? Where's Forest Fair? Is that in this area?
No, that's,
It's
a little bit farther up.
But that's on
towards
HLB
Englewood.
land?
That is also on HLB. Well, most of the actual forest fair is on Parks and Rec land, however, they camp on HLB land, so we permit them to camp.
Oh, okay. Mr. Weddleton.
Maybe to brag for HLB, because you guys, as a commission, go down there, go to meetings down there. Obviously, this is a huge issue in Girdwood. They're always bumping in HLB land, and balancing the different interests on where to put trails. You've done a great job with, and you've, I think, worked like on the industrial park was tremendous. I mean, there was really no good solution, but you got to somewhere that worked. I'm very impressed by that. And then also providing, we just have worked slowly. We've been involved in little pieces of getting it so they can, of course, parking in Girdwood. Well, where do you put these cars once they were hauling back to Anchorage? So Robin and the team worked to provide a temporary place for them to store cars during slush cup and big events where they have a lot of parking. But really very flexible. It's really tremendous. So just really going in there, how do we solve problems with the resources we have? So I'm always impressed with how Girdwood works, but your role in that is very good. And also you're supporting their area plan as well. So I think that'll solve a lot of the issues with the trails.
Great.
Through the chair, Ms. Wilson, we do spend a lot of time in Girdwood because we are the largest landowner there, and we feel like it is a place where we need to spend lots of time. And our commissioners, there's 3 of them here now, do go down every year, and they don't just go down. We set up walks for them. They get to walk the trails. They get to go see our projects. So they're very familiar, especially in Girdwood. And then we do the same thing in Eagle River so that they get to see some of our projects and land up there.
Great. Okay, well, unless there are further questions or comments from the commission, I'm going to close this work session. Have a little bit of a break. Anyone? Time for audience participation. We don't usually do it at work sessions, but we have time. Any audience participation? Okay.
I'll be brief. You can call Haberman. Alaska resident for over 40 years, lived in Matthew Valley. 20 of those years I lived in Anchorage. Note, again, still the same problem. The same members of Congress guess what I'm going to say. As I've said the last few meetings, the last couple of days, that public can include what's being presented here unless you come to the meeting. I would request that presentation that you just did, my email address is eugene@mtaonline.net. Please send that copy of the presentation. I appreciate that very much, but the fact is, very informative. Thank you very much. It was also, note for the record, for the public who listened to the tape, may not be aware, there was a tour of one of those buildings by the Assembly, publicly announced just prior to the meeting, and so the reference to that, some of the Assembly members were there, and I was there, and attended. And that's all I have to say, and thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, this work session is closed.